The vast expanses of Townlong steppes are a breathtaking sight, featuring rolling hills blanketed in lush grass and dotted with vibrant red leaf trees. As you journey northeast, the landscape transforms into a more rugged terrain, dominated by towering rocky crags where the Yaungol tribes have made their home. A dramatic chasm divides the steppes from the eerie dreadwastes, with a winding river and a sprawling marsh nestled within, eventually flowing out to the sea. To the east, south of the Longying outpost, lies a secluded bog, adding a touch of mystery to the region. In the western part of the steppes, a series of islands emerges from the waters. The southwestern and western islands are claimed by the Mantid, recognizable by their towering central trees and pod-like structures. The island housing the Niuzao temple mirrors the grassy hills of the main steppes, though it is plagued by Mantid incursions and the sinister presence of Sha in the temple's catacombs. The northernmost island is a labyrinth of caves, home to enchanting sprites and majestic cloud serpents, and scattered with ancient ruins. This island's steep hills and significant Mogu presence add to its formidable allure. The Mantid, a ferocious insectoid race, are isolated from the rest of Pandaria by the formidable serpent spine. Nestled in the Townlong steppes, they consume everything in their path to construct their crystalline empire, ruled by ruthless warriors and cunning feudal lords. Pandaria is thrown into chaos when the Mantid's century-long cycle of aggression begins a decade early, shattering their Great Wall and unleashing their greatest warriors. The beleaguered Pandaren must now confront the most devastating swarm in history, while unraveling the mystery behind the Mantid's sudden change of behavior. The turmoil in Townlong steppes is a direct continuation of the events in Kunlai Summit. There, Terran Zu, the leader of the Shadowpan, succumbed to the Sha of Hatred. His rescue from the Shadowpan Monastery is a pivotal moment, revealing the true worth of the Alliance and Horde to Pandaria. Through their bravery, players earn Terran Zu's unwavering allegiance, forging a powerful new alliance. The tale continues in the tumultuous Townlong steppes, where Terran Zu pursues his arch-nemesis, the elusive Sha of Hatred, which has wreaked havoc across the region. You'll join the Shadowpan Vanguard, riding alongside them as they navigate a landscape teeming with danger. The steppes are not only home to the warlike Yaungol, but also face an encroaching threat from the Mantid to the south. The sacred Niuzao temple is under siege, and a rogue sect of Mogu is plotting to create their own dark demigod on a coastal island. The Mantid's relentless assault on Niuzao temple in Townlong comes to an abrupt halt with the death of Grand Empress Shek'Zir. However, the respite is short-lived as the Shanze Mogu, led by the fearsome Shanbu, lay siege to Niuzao temple. Mogu's siege engines breach the Pandaren defenses, bringing them to the brink of annihilation. Shanbu himself storms the temple, casting a spell on Niuzao. Despite Shanbu's threats, Niuzao refuses to surrender, prompting a final, desperate assault by the Mogu and their cloud serpents. Against all odds, the Pandaren defenders repel the attackers, driving the Mogu from Niuzao Island. Shanbu and his forces retreat to the Isle of Thunder, regrouping with Lei Shen's vast legions. Though defeated, Shanbu leaves a contingent of Mogu to secure Shanze Dao for the Thunder King, setting the stage for future conflicts. I figured it would be a good idea to talk about Niuzao. There really isn't a bunch of lore on him, but since he is so prominent in the region, I felt I should cover him here. During Lei Shen's relentless conquest of Pandaria, he and his Mogu forces overpowered the almighty August Celestials. In a moment of deception and fear, Niuzao the Black Ox was surrounded by an army of lifelike clay Mogu, which he mistook for real warriors. This clever ruse allowed the Mogu to subdue the powerful Celestial, marking a significant victory in their campaign. As Emperor Xiaohao approached the Serpent Spine, he was paralyzed by fear of the nearby Mantid. Niuzao called out to him from across the steppes, offering wise counsel. If you are afraid, simply follow your own feet. They will lead you where you need to go. This advice was precisely what the Emperor needed, as the Sha of Fear's insidious power made one afraid to act, even when success was assured. Emperor Xiaohao ultimately discovered his courage when his friend the Monkey King was in danger. In that moment, he broke free from the paralyzing fear, ready to take decisive action. Niuzao, along with the other three Celestials, opened the gate of the Veil of Eternal Blossoms, unveiling its hidden beauty to the world. In the climax of the Shadowpan rep quests, Niuzao faces a dire threat when the Shanze clan of Mogu, led by Shanbu, launch an assault during the quest's surprise attack. However, the valiant Shadowpan forces, commanded by Ban Bearheart, rise to the challenge and defeat the Mogu attackers, liberating Niuzao from their clutches. In a time of great need, Niuzao bestowed his powers upon the Golden Lotus warriors, empowering them to defend the Veil after the tragic death of Ji the Harmonious, when the Mogu once again sought to conquer this sacred land. Also, it is confirmed that like the Aspects, the August Celestials can take on mortal forms. Niuzao took on the form of a glowing torrent during the trial of Garrosh in the novel War Crimes. Ambermarsh lies just west of the Gao-Ran battlefront, nestled along the southern edge of Townlong Steppes, bordering the Dreadwaste. Here, initiates Chao and Fang stand vigilant, guarding the path from the marsh to prevent the troublesome agitated Nettleskin and Seed Stealer sprites from causing havoc. However, Chao faces a dire predicament. His Shadowpan weapon has been stolen by the mischievous Needlebottom, an offense severe enough to risk his expulsion from the Shadowpan. Deadtalkers Plateau lies just west of Crevis, on the westernmost edge of the Townlong Steppes mainland. Here, the sinister Deadtalker corpse defilers of the Yaungol are busy raiding defiled spirits, their dark rituals filling the air with an eerie chill. Overseeing these nefarious activities from a bluff to the west is the formidable Uruk, his gaze ever watchful. Dusklight Hollow is nestled between the Dusklight Bridge and the Gao-Ran battlefront in southern Townlong Steppes, perched high above Ambermarsh to the south. This base of Lao Chin's Shadowpan is uniquely situated within the hollowed-out interior of a great fallen tree, which now forms the Dusklight Bridge to Townlong Steppes. The sinister Jaw of Hatred once swept through this area on its way from Hatred's Vice to Sickfest, driving the local Scorpions into a frenzy. The Dusklight initiates, unprepared for the onslaught of this seething flesh rippers, were quickly overwhelmed. Only Initiate Pao Mi survived the massacre, as the main forces under Lao Chin's command were stationed at the Dusklight Bridge during the attack. Farwatch Overlook is strategically positioned between Renze's Watchpost, the Widening Deep, and Sickfest in southwestern Townlong Steppes. Here, Hawkmaster Neurong commands the Farwatch Marksmen and Hawkmasters, tirelessly defending the steppes against the relentless Korthic Fleetwings that soar over the Widening Deep from the Dreadwaste. Their vigilance and skill keep the skies above Townlong Steppes safe from these aerial invaders. The fields of Niuzao span the remainder of the island just off the western coast of the mainland Townlong Steppes, beyond the Niuzao Temple and the Srathic Incursion. These fields, lying northwest of the temple and southwest of the Great Tree, are home to friendly wild Townlong yaks and hostile Osul Farstalkers. Following the quest, Bad Yak, Blue Saddle, and Cousin Bag of Rocks can be found relocated to just south of the pond. The entrance to the Niuzao Catacombs is located just southwest of the pond, marked by a couple of banners. Nearby to the north is the broken bridge leading to Stravis. When the daily catch is the red belly mandarin, the lake overflows with fish, attracting the appearance of salty eel, creating a vibrant and bustling scene. The Gao-Ran battlefront spans the eastern half of the southern border of Townlong Steppes, adjacent to the Dreadwaste. Gao-Ran the Tempered has established his camp beneath the protective canopy of a great tree, creating two natural choke points to fend off the mantid swarming north from the Dreadwaste, the battlefront itself and Shallow Steppe Pass to the east. However, the relentless onslaught of mantid is exhausting the Pandarian defenders, who desperately need adventurers' help to push back the invaders. Prick-thick limb pincers relentlessly swarm the battlefront, only to be obliterated by the defenders. Dragon cannons unleash fiery destruction, marksmen pick off targets with precision, magi freeze the invaders in their tracks, and blackguards cut down any that breach the lines. The battlefront is a dynamic and perilous place, where every moment counts in the struggle to keep the mantid at bay. Hatred's Vice. Once the dominion of the Pale Wind tribe of Yaungol, now stands as a grim reminder of the Shah of Hatred's devastation. The Shah's influence drove the tribe members to turn on each other, resulting in the complete massacre of the village. Now, Ashfang hyenas scavenge among the remnants, and several Yaungol oil derricks remain as silent witnesses to the tragedy. In the center of the camp, near where the Shadowpan caravan sets up for a few quests, stands the totem, marking this sorrowful place. In these marshy lands, the Osol Mist Shaman wield their torches to enslave or kill Sumprushes lurkers, a stark contrast to earlier times when the Yaungol used totems to peacefully communicate with these mist lurkers. Leading the shaman are Demong Naruk and Jahesh of Osol, who reside in the upper Sumprushes. The lower Sumprushes are also home to numerous swamp rodents, adding to the area's diverse and treacherous ecosystem. The Niuzao Catacombs lie beneath the Niuzao Temple on the large island off the western coast of Townlong Steppes. You can access the catacombs via a path along the island's western edge, situated between the temple and the pond in the fields of Niuzao. Originally, the temple wardens were tasked with containing the Shah of Fear, but they failed, allowing it to escape to the Dread Wastes. There, it infested the Mantid, inciting the Thrathic incursion northeast of the temple. In its wake, the Shah left behind dreadlings that have slain the fear-stricken sentinels. Deep within the catacombs lies the ghastly confines, home to the ominous Dread Shadow, awaiting any who dare to venture into its lair. Shanze Dao, the northernmost island in the Western Sea off the north coast of Townlong Steppes, stands as a strategic outpost. The Shadowpan, hailing from their garrison, have established a small camp on the island's southeastern corner, complete with a portal for quick travel back to their base. With the resurgence of the Thunder King, most of the Shanze Mogu stationed on the island have departed for the Throne of Thunder, preparing for the final assault on Pandaria. Despite this, Lei Shen's influence remained strong, keeping Shanze Dao firmly under Mogu control. With the resurgence of the Thunder King, most of the Shanze Mogu stationed on the island have departed for the Throne of Thunder, preparing for the final assault on Pandaria. Despite this, Lei Shen's influence remained strong, keeping Shanze Dao firmly under Mogu control. By completing the quest through the portal, players gain the ability to teleport between Shanze Dao and the Shadowpan garrison, enhancing their strategic mobility. Although the Isle of Thunder lies just north of Shanze Dao, it exists in a separate instance, making it inaccessible by flying or swimming. Those who attempt to journey northward will find their path obstructed by an impenetrable fog. The Widening Deep, a vast chasm carved by waters flowing from Ambermarsh to the Western Sea in the southwest, forms the western half of the border between Townlong Steppes and the Dread Wastes. This dramatic landscape is strewn with the corpses of Korthic Fleetwings, shot down by the vigilant Shadowpan defenders stationed at Farwatch Overlook. Their relentless efforts keep the skies clear, making the Widening Deep both a natural marvel and a testament to the Shadowpan's unwavering defense. Between 12,200 and 12,000 years before the opening of the Dark Portal, the robust race known as the Yaungol roamed central Kalimdor. They lived in harmony with nature under the guidance of the demigod Cenarius. However, the Yaungol eventually grew tired of sharing their hunting grounds with the nearby trolls. Ignoring Cenarius' counsel, they ventured south in search of new territory, leading them to the borders of the Mogu Empire. The reigning Mogu Emperor, Qiyang the Merciless, enslaved the Yaungol and commanded his flesh shapers to enhance their strength, savagery, and intelligence. For generations, the Yaungol endured brutal subjugation until they, along with other slave races, rose in rebellion and succeeded in toppling the mighty Mogu Empire. Although the Yaungol regained their freedom, much of their culture was lost due to the strict Mogu laws that had forbidden the preservation of their oral storytelling traditions. Some Yaungol clung to fragmented myths of their benevolent Cenarius, while others sought to abandon their past and forge a new destiny through force. Disagreements grew intense, prompting many Yaungol to head north, yearning to return to a life in harmony with nature. Nomadic tribes traversed the continent, eventually settling in the frozen lands near the Storm Peaks. There, the influence of nearby Titan-forged machinery gradually transformed them into the Tonka. Another group returned to central Kalimdor where they reunited with Cenarius. Those who study with Cenarius learned the druidic magic of the natural world, while others mastered shamanic powers. The energies of the Well of Eternity warped these central Yaungol into a new subspecies known as the Tauren. The final group remained near the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. However, due to repeated conflicts with the other liberated slave races, these Yaungol eventually settled west of the Serpent Spine Wall. In this harsh environment, the constant threat of the ruthless Mantid and widespread internal conflicts caused their culture to become more warlike and savage than that of their northern cousins. For many years, the Tonka, Tauren, and Yaungol maintained some contact with one another. However, the Great Sundering ultimately shattered the connections between these tribes, leaving them isolated in their respective lands. Recent Mantid attacks have driven many Yaungol warlords to conclude that their best hope lies in breaching the wall and finding new homes in the safer regions of the Kunlai summit. The Shadowpan, already overwhelmed by Mantid assaults and a Shah uprising, were unable to prevent the Yaungol incursion. As the Yaungol horde stormed into Kunlai, they brought war in their wake. Some Yaungol even fell under the influence of the Shah, becoming more violent and brutal than ever. Despite the chaos, the Pandaren eventually managed to fend off the Yaungol invasions. Yet, as Min notes, the Yaungol are resilient survivors. Despite their setbacks, they will learn from these events, and their culture will survive. In Yaungol society, only the strongest, most courageous, and most resilient individuals may lead the tribes. These traits are held in the highest regard, and are essential for all Yaungol leaders. However, with the ever-present threat from the Mantid to the south, the Yaungol cannot afford to lose a single warrior in internal power struggles. To address this, they have implemented a surprisingly civilized solution. When disputes arise, they settle them by fighting with blunted weapons until one yields or passes out. Similarly, new leaders are chosen through ritual combat. A Yaungol seeking to become chief must place his family banner and face any challengers to his authority. Yaungol firekeepers, in a display of devotion, ritualistically set themselves ablaze to emulate the ascension of Ordos. They cast enchantments and prayers to ease his pain, honoring the shaman who sacrificed himself to the flame and ascended to demigod status, following the promises of the Fire Lords. Traditionally, Yaungol bury their dead in sacred burial grounds. Deadtalkers once held the responsibility of maintaining these sites. However, they betrayed their duties, defiling the corpses of their former clanmates and raising them with dark magic, thus tarnishing the sanctity of these sacred grounds. Dwelling in the perilous Townlong steppes, the resilient Yaungol have adapted to the harsh terrain since the Sundering, transforming local supplies of oil into deadly weapons and forging an aggressive culture. Burning oil is the cornerstone of Yaungol warfare. In the era of their greatest warriors, this weapon surpassed even magic in its lethality. The scorching substance could scar foes, torch landscapes, and destroy the cover provided by trees, effectively routing even the most fearsome Mantid assaults. A long-standing tactic among the Yaungol is to light more campfires than their actual numbers at night, deceiving enemy spies into overestimating their strength and masking their true positions. The Yaungol are a nomadic race, constantly on the move. They establish temporary fire camps in areas rich in natural resources, particularly oil and game, collected through mobile derricks. Decisions on where to set up camp, how long to stay, and when to move are solely at the discretion of the chieftain. In combat, the Yaungol strike hard and fast, employing cavalry to flank and harass the enemy while their powerful infantry targets the weakest points of the enemy line. This initial assault is supported by fiery sorcery and flaming siege weapons. The Yaungol are known for their tactical flexibility, retreating as swiftly as they charge, always gauging the enemy and committing their forces only when victory is assured. Niuzao Temple spans 2 fortified islands beyond the towering Serpent Spine Wall. For years, dedicated Pandaren defenders have protected the narrow bridges connecting these isles, fending off countless invaders. However, the relentless Mantid have recently constructed their own bridge, a massive tree root, and captured one of the islands in a surprise attack. Now, these fierce insectoids stand ready to launch an assault on Niuzao's remaining guardians, threatening the very heart of the temple's defenses. Vizier Jinbok prowls just beyond the Mantid's natural bridge, meticulously harvesting the precious sap from the massive tree root. With his extensive alchemic expertise, This formidable figure is transforming the sap into potent weapons and tools, all designed to further the siege on Niuzao Temple. His efforts promise to enhance the Mantids' already formidable arsenal, posing an even greater threat to the temple's defenders. What Commander Wojak lacks in strategic brilliance, he more than compensates for with sheer ferocity. His devastating strikes were pivotal in the Mantids' exploitation of their insidious bridge, enabling their infiltration of the island. While crafting battle plans is left to the Mantid general, Wojak's singular desire is for bloodshed, driving him relentlessly in combat. General Pavelok, a pragmatic and unyielding leader, harbors no fear of the Pandaren or their allies. He seamlessly combines his formidable personal strength with the might of his Mantid armies to crush his enemies. For Pavelok, victory is the ultimate honor, and he tolerates no failure. His minions must achieve their objectives or face his wrath. Wing Leader Neuronic's decisive strikes have turned the tide in countless battles. He views the incremental gains made by General Pavelok as insignificant compared to the sweeping victories he believes he could achieve if he held command. Despite his devastating aerial assaults against the Temple's guardians, Neuronic harbors an insatiable desire to prove his superiority over the general and sees true glory for himself. That's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you did enjoy. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself.